Welcome to another edition of Bleav in Virginia, the interview, where I got a special guest, former teammate, a guy that really set the standards on maximizing your talent and earning everything that you receive, and that is the one and only Patrick Kerney, number 58. His jersey is retired here at UVA, went on to play 11 seasons in the NFL, was a two-time All-Pro, and I'm glad I finally got to track him down. I know he's a busy man, so everybody welcome Patrick Kerney to the show. How you doing, Pat?
I'm doing great, Ahmad. Thank you for having me on, man. It's really it's great to see you, great to talk with you, and nothing but great memories of you as a teammate. I'm glad to be able to chop it up with you now.
Yeah, man. You know, it's one of the things where I always like to take it behind the curtain, allow fans to see another side of you. You know, they saw you on the field being a dominant pass rusher. They got a chance to see you in the NFL for over a decade, two different teams, the Atlanta Falcons and the Seattle Seahawks. But a lot of people don't know this. They know we were teammates here at UVA. Well, you were actually on the Falcons team when I was an undrafted free agent when Michael Vick got drafted. And you were a first-round pick yourself. So let's just start there. Being with the Atlanta Falcons when Michael Vick became a part of the franchise, what was the biggest difference from your standpoint for your first 2 years and then when Michael Vick came in that 2001 draft?
Yeah, my first 2 years were bad, candidly, right? I mean, I came in my rookie year as a late first round pick, and I wasn't the starter yet. And I finished that season with 2.5 sacks, which, as a backup's kind of like, all right, the jury's still out. But they made me the starter the next year, as they, often kind of have to do with a first round draft pick. And my first season as a starter, I ended the season with 2.5 sacks. Bad stuff. And so, they drafted Michael Vick the next year, and I got a new defensive line coach who is just one of the most important people in my life to this day. My oldest daughter her middle name is named after him, Bill Johnson. And he came and, a lot like Ty Smith did my senior year at Virginia, just, really drilled home, fundamental soundness and a quality stance and getting power from the ground, and where to strike a guy and how to control a guy better. And, that timed up well as Michael Vick came on board. His rookie year, Chris Chandler played most of the time, but, they put the ball in Vick's hands enough for us to see that what he did at Virginia Tech was going to be replicated in the NFL. And I always tell people he was the best athlete in the world. And I know there's probably Bo Jackson it would come into that conversation a
Mm-hmm.
lot. But I think Mike was unbelievable from a pound for pound strength standpoint, an acceleration standpoint, a top speed standpoint. Bo might have had him on top speed. But what Mike could do with his arm was absurd. His change of direction is unbelievable. So it was great that as my game improved, it was there for the ride with a great offense led by Mike.
Now that's actually, a great story because, you're a guy, if you look at how your NFL career started, as you stated, um, you were a first round pick, you were a backup, and then your first year as a starter, by your standards, 2.5 sacks is modest. But even here at UVA, I don't think a lot of people know you wasn't recruited here to play football, right? You were a
Right.
lacrosse player.
Yeah. Look, the high school I played at, which now puts out the league now puts out a lot of FBS guys, or what back then we called D1. But back then there was definitely an inferiority complex in that league. It's a New England boarding school that produced a lot of hockey and lacrosse players. And, every like other year, there'd be one or two studs from the entire league that would maybe go play in the Ivies, Patriot League level. But the thought of someone going from that level to play at the Division I level and at a the quality that we were playing at, in the 90s, was just unheard of. So, when Dom Starzia recruited me to play lacrosse there, I was ready to give it up. Uh, fortunately, I got hurt my senior year of football. And yeah, I missed 4 games. That first game I missed, found myself, I'd already committed to play lacrosse Virginia. I was going to give up football. And all of a sudden, I had it taken away from me, couldn't play that next weekend. And I found myself in tears in the locker room because I couldn't play football that Saturday. And, that was that moment where I just said, look, man, if you love this sport this much, you can't just quit. You got to go down to Virginia, do your best, get your butt whooped, and go home. So the rest of your life, you can always say, I tried. Um, and Dom Starzia, what's not really known too much about him is that he went to Brown to play football.
Wow.
And yeah, and was handed a lacrosse stick his freshman year and said, "Here, try this." And not only did he go on to be an All-American as a player, but goes on to become the winningest coach in Division I history. So there's a guy that could empathize and say, "Yeah, sure, go on out, give it a shot." And he allowed me to do it. And I guess Coach Welsh, the story goes that Coach Welsh walked over to the lacrosse office about a week into my rookie training camp and said, Dom, I think you got one for us. and Dom at that point knew he had lost one. So yeah, I played lacrosse that first year to honor my commitment. We lost in overtime in the national championship game to Princeton. And then, after spring ball my second year, when I became a scholarship guy, I had to do spring ball at that point. Once that was over, I joined on the lacrosse team. But then that was it. The chance to start the next fall came up, and we had put a string of defensive ends into the NFL. It became the prospect became a reality for me, and it's like, all right, time to put lacrosse to bed and really see if this NFL thing is a reality.
Because your first year on campus was that 94 or 95?
Fall of '95.
All of 95. So that was the ACC championship team,
That's
correct?
right. Yeah. I played probably 15 snaps, 20 snaps maybe against Florida State just to let Dwayne Ashman and John Harris get some air. And I did not make any impact on that game. But just to have been on that field as a walk-on defensive end at probably 230 pounds, it was surreal.
Yeah. So you are part of that 95 game versus Florida State ACC championship team in football, and then in lacrosse, you have a chance to participate in the national championship. And you just got winning mojo with you. That's what it was.
Well, unfortunately, it's only mojo because now the lacrosse team went to the national championship, and all I can say is I had the best seat in the house. Uh, we, we fortunately had a long stick midfielder, which is my position. That was CJ Ginter, and he was really really good. Not too embarrassed about having to ride the pine behind him because he was a joy to watch.
So were you so here's the thing. In football at 230 playing in, that's small. But lacrosse, are you looked at as the bigger guy? Like were you caught in the middle of a little too big for lacrosse and obviously small for your position in football?
That's exactly right. I was in a no man's land, and really, I was so pressed, rightfully, to put on weight for football that, by the time I showed up for lacrosse, I was already had bulked up to 240, which made me, my best lacrosse season was probably my junior year of high school when I was like 215, and could move with anybody at that point. And even my senior year, I was up like 225, and just that's not 215 was my right lacrosse weight, so 240 just didn't have a home on the lacrosse field. But it was. I have so many great friends from the lacrosse team to this day, and talk about a great cross trainer
Yeah.
for football. The speed endurance, the change of direction, the physicality. From a conditioning standpoint, you know, football was pretty easy conditioning relative to lacrosse. I think Percy Ellsworth and a bunch of those guys used to joke. They called me the running man because if I if I couldn't do anything on the football field, I could run to the
Right.
ball all day. So they had a good time with that nickname, and a lot of that is attributed to my conditioning from lacrosse.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question because my son uh, currently plays soccer. He's going back out for football in the second year of high school. And I was going to ask you, is the conditioning similar to soccer? Because as I've started to coach some high school sports, I coach high school track and I get lacrosse players for indoor track, and they're always just well conditioned. It's same with soccer kids. They come in and they well conditioned. So that was going to be my next question to you. How was the preparation for lacrosse? Was that an added advantage once you stepped on the football field?
Certainly, we always time 40s for football, and I understand the value of that. But what really can't be measured is speed endurance. It's great, if you got a pass rusher, who runs a 4.6 in the first quarter,
Mm.
but he's a 5 flat in the fourth. He's not of much use to you, right? Give me the guy, if he's a 4.7 in the first quarter and a 4.8 in the fourth, give me him all day. Uh, Speed endurance is something that's hard to measure. You just got to develop an eye for it in the film room, really. Particularly when you get to the NFL level, no agent is going to allow their athlete to, run 15 40s, every 30 seconds and see what the drop off is.
You're right.
Yeah. Anyways, I think that's important. One of the great defensive line coaches in the NFL. I never played for him, but Rod Marinelli.
Mhm.
I met him at the combine, but also late in my career when he was potentially going to become Seattle's defensive line coach. And he said he starts watching every defensive end's film starting with the fourth quarter.
Wow.
Yeah, he wants to see what a guy does when he's running on fumes. Uh,
Mm.
and so it was. I'd always had that kind of thought process, and it was nice to hear someone so gifted as a coach validate that hey, you got to be able to give it up in the fourth quarter and have something left for that fourth quarter. Because teams want sacks in the first three quarters. Teams need sacks in the
Yes.
fourth, right? You're the Mariano Rivera. You're coming in. You're the closer. And so I'm going on a little long-winded, but yeah, between
No, love it.
lacrosse and wrestling was my other sport in high school. Those are two sports that just demand absurd conditioning, and it helped me a ton.
And because football, we get caught up in that dog, the toughness. I've never met a soft former wrestler. I've never,
No.
like, guys you can fake football, and we all have been in locker rooms where, whether you play receiver or DB, they claim like you're not as tough because you make business decisions, you got alligator arms. But wrestling, I've never met a wrestler where they were like, that guy was soft. Because you guys basically just headbutt each other and get cauliflower ear. And I mean, that sport, I remember the wrestlers would come in at UVA sometimes and use the bikes in the weight room, and they just be knotted up. And I'm just like, what, tell me about this sport again. Like, what do you guys do?
I mean, they are not happy. Wrestlers aren't happy unless they're miserable.
Mm.
It's kind of the best way to put it. Them and rowers. There's
Mm.
like two sports that they're not happy unless they're miserable. And it's funny. I switched to wrestling. I didn't do it until my junior year. I'd always been an ice hockey player. I used to make fun of my buddies that wrestled. I'd say,
Yeah, hockey too?
"Yeah, that's what I went to boarding school for, man. I was trying to become a Division I hockey player."
Bro, you just, you like pain, huh? Because since I watch your social media, you do the rowing machine.
Oh yeah,
That's pain. Like,
it's just
come
pain
on, okay?
management. Yeah, got to find that tough button somehow. See if it still
Man.
works.
Well, then I cut you off. Tell me about the hockey journey too now. I mean, we're here.
Yeah, man. I, I was like a good to very good hockey player growing up in like Pennsylvania, Jersey, And I wanted to play in college, and no one from where I was playing was going to play in college. It's like, all right, well, then if I really want to do that, I got to leave. And so I went off to boarding school, and I joked that I went as a sophomore, and that hockey went so well that by my junior year I was a wrestler. Uh,
They slid you right off the ice, huh?
I'd made the varsity football team. I'd made the varsity lacrosse team, and going after my junior year football season, which went really well. My football coach was like, Patrick, I know you really love football, and maybe you want to move away from hockey. Wrestling would be a great cross trainer.
Yeah.
Hint, hint. I'm like, what are you
Yeah.
telling me, man? So, anyways, uh, after one day of tryouts, I hadn't skated since the last day of the previous season. Non skates, the very first day of my junior year tryouts, I was like, the writing's on the wall, man. I'm not going to be a college hockey player. Let's go wrestle. Um, and I guess I used to make fun of my buddies that wrestle. Like, your match is 6 minutes. How hard can it be?
Ooh.
And our second day, Ahmad, we do 3 1-minute periods. I was convinced that's how I was going to die. At age at age 17 or age 16, I guess I still was, in a full body cramp in this 95-degree room. I was convinced this is how I'm going to die after half of a wrestling match. It was the most demand my body had ever had placed on it. And, uh, you know, you just get to thrive on that suffering and being able to take it. And there's no one else to blame out on that mat. There's no one else to share the glory with. And, you got a bleeding nose, deal with it. You get, cauliflower ear coming on, deal with it. Like, there's the reserves aren't coming. It's a great sport.
And you're originally from Connecticut, Watertown, Connecticut?
Well, that's where the boarding school is that I went to. I'm originally from just north of Philadelphia, Ardley, Pennsylvania. Went across the river to school in New Jersey. And then, when I thought that, possibly I could get a shot at college hockey, I said, I got to go to New England and play in the top league. And the big fish from the small pond got in the ocean, struggle.
And what's the average size for a hockey player? Like, I know size like football players, certain positions, it's measurables, basketball, hockey. What is measurables for a hockky player?
Hockey and lacrosse players are kind of similar size. Like a big hockey player is like 215.
Okay.
Big, call it 6'2", 215. That's a big, thick hockey player. You get the occasional guy that was, a monster at 230, 235. But I don't know. My guess is, if the average man in this country is 5'10", 185, the average hockey player is 6', 195,
Okay.
something like that.
Was that like how big was Wayne Gretzky?
Tiny.
He was tiny.
Oh, like one of the funny things about Wayne, I think this was a self-admitted thing. Like, he couldn't bench press 135, or maybe that's all he could bench press. So, something
Yeah,
like that,
yeah.
was like the admission where he's like, "No, I'm just a great hockey player." Now he's obviously being modest. To say he's great is an understatement. He is the great one.
Yes, the
Um,
great.
but it's funny on social media. You'll see now, like the ABC Wide World of Sports used to have athletes from various sports compete against each other in 50-yard dashes and things like that.
Yes.
And Wayne was fast. Wayne, yeah, I forget some of the names you look at, but like NFL wide receivers, MLB outfielders, and he's blowing them up in the 50-yard dash. You're like, all right, Wayne, you're sandbagging, man. Like,
Yeah.
you just try to say, sort of ho hum rural Canadian, like, oh, I just skate to where the puck's gonna go, and my teammates make me better. It's like, no, man, like, you are a surreal athlete with unbelievable vision. And anyways, yeah, no, Wayne was a great athlete. He wasn't a physically powerful one. He had every other attribute.
Yeah, and it's amazing because when you go back and you look at when you grew up and when I grew up, and we looked at ESPN back then and the competitions they had, how they cross competed, and they show how athletic these players were in different sports and how they didn't just specialize in a single sport. Because it seemed like today, a kid is usually just specializing in a sport. And I would love for that aspect to return, just those competitions, just so you can really admire how athletic an Ovechkin really is, even
Yeah.
though he's playing soccer. Or I see like people are always amazed at F1 and NASCAR play when they have these Netflix specials and you see them training and they're like, man, they're just driving. Why they working out? And it's like, bro, you have no idea. It's still an athlete. Like when Tiger started showing work, I mean, I think the Navy SEAL workouts messed Tiger up, but still just showing like I'm an athlete at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, the reaction time, that was probably Wayne Gretzky's greatest strength is reaction time. Just like a NASCAR driver, Formula One driver, like reaction time is
Yep.
everything. And that's, derived from to get nerdy here, right? That's derived from your central nervous system. And, it starts with what you're born with and then how you've grown it in terms of being able to develop, hand speed, foot speed, hand-eye coordination that is just surreal at those levels of those sports.
So when you get here to UVA, you're here as a lacrosse player. What's the grant like? Were you a walk on for lacrosse? Was it a partial scholarship, full scholarship? What was that situation?
Yeah, that was a partial scholarship, and I don't think I think lacrosse only had, and it might not be too different today. They only had, I want to say, like 3 or 4 full scholarships, which went to your senior studs, maybe more than that, but nonetheless, I think Dom Snargia said that the scholarship they gave me was the smallest possible. Um, you know, I he I think he from the start saw me as a project. We met at a select camp the summer before my senior year up at Williams College. And I walked up to him after a practice when he was introduced, like, "Hey, Dom Starzy's here," and everyone's swooning, and I'm not even considering Virginia lacrosse as an option. And mind you, I just had I was first team. I was the best long stick midfielder in New England that year, but even still, I was like, I mean, Virginia is freaking like they've been in the last 2 national championship games. Like that's a different level. So I walked up to him because I'd gotten one of the 10,000 form letters that Virginia football sends out across the country.
Hmm.
And I was like, I hear somebody who can at least communicate with the football team. So I walked on and said, "Hey, Coach Starzy, my name is Patrick Kerney. I've gotten a form letter from your football program, and boy, I'd love to play football at the University of Virginia." And he just looks at me and goes, "Son, I don't know who you are, but I'd love for you to come play lacrosse at Virginia."
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, lacrosse practice uniform is tank top, and I've always been a weight room guy.
Yeah, I test.
Yeah, so I came across the field at almost 6'6", and for a rising high school senior, pretty yoked up, and
Yeah.
that's when he was just like, "Yeah, we'll take one of those." I don't think he even knew if I could throw and catch, but he
Yeah.
figured he
You come
figured
walking up to the guy looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Conan. Now I'm gonna be like, hey, can we find money for that right there?
Yeah, we'll find a place for him on the field. Anyways, it progressed from there. I kind of looked around in shock when he said that, and stayed in touch, and a couple other schools were showing some interest. But once I got that admissions approval letter from Virginia, I told my roommate at boarding school, I was like, "So I think I maybe just got into UVA." He's like, "That's where you're going." I was like, "Really? Like, should I not hold out for, a couple of the Ivy Leagues are interested?" He's like, "No, go to UVA. Thank me later." And yes, I still thank him to this day because it was, in retrospect, I don't know about you, but, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but in retrospect, if I could do it all over again and pick any school to go to, I think I really would have picked UVA. We
I still
were
pick it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were a nationally significant football program. We had a shot every Saturday against anyone we were playing. Obviously the academic reputation is great. It was a fun school. Like our team, Welsh put together a pretty good culture
Hmm.
of like, he knew he wasn't going to rack up a bunch of 5 stars. And so he'd get a couple 5 stars and then fill it with 2 or 3 stars and build that blue collar work ethic that made us that nationally significant program. It was, yeah, I don't think I'd have gone anywhere else if I could have.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy that you say that because every time people always say, if you could do it all over again, would you go? Because it was between, I was initially committed to Florida and I flipped to Virginia. And they said, what, knowing what you know now, would you change? And I was like, no, it's just because of what you said. Once you step away from the game, I really appreciate the decision that I made as an 18-year-old kid. Like, I really made a great decision.
Yeah, and I think today to listen to this, people would be like, "Man, Florida, well, that's big time ball." You're like, "No, dude, Virginia was big time
That was big
ball."
time ball. Yeah, I know. Now, don't get me wrong, Florida won the national championship, but
Yeah,
it's just I'm not that, like you talked about culture, that culture wouldn't have meshed well with me and my values and what I admire most about life. Like Coach Wells embodied what my culture was. Like the hard work, getting it out the mud, creating a true foundation of knowing when you achieve something, you really worked and got it, and you're not afraid because you know how to work. And that leads me to transition to, because you went to boarding school, so I really want to. What was the biggest adjustment going to boarding school, and through that adjustment, did that help you going once you transitioned to UVA? Because I just remember when I first got to UVA, transition was tough for me because I had never been away from home. So what was that first week of being a young adolescent going to boarding school like for young Patrick Kerney?
yeah. I still value my experience. It was the Taft School. I just had my 30th reunion this year. Crazy, but anyways, I still value that place so much. It's called college preparatory school for a reason. It was very academically challenging. One thing, we had Saturday classes.
Mm.
Yeah, and so you had homework 6 nights a week, and it was real deal grinding academics, and to get to college and only have 5 days of classes was like, this is unreal. This is great. And there's beer. What a wonderful place.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, the Taft, the culture that they create there, in terms of work capacity and the other students they bring in, still some of my best friends are from there because we forced ourselves to be the best version of ourselves. And, we're calling each other over the summers like, hey, you doing that bigger, faster, stronger program? You doing those strength shoes? Like, you
Yeah.
better be on your stuff, man. Like, we're going to be playing Andover before you know it. And I think, what's that saying? Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. I was fortunate to get there. Not that I didn't have fantastic friends before I left for Taft, but really luckily walked into a good class with some great guys who valued hard work.
And you just said strength shoes. I don't think people know what you mean when you say strength shoes. Can you explain? I got an idea of what you're talking about. The product you talk about was strength. What was strength shoes for the listeners and viewers?
Sure. So, strength shoes were basically I don't, I think they're probably a bit of a ploy, but nonetheless, it was a sneaker, but it was attached to this giant platform that kept you on your toes the whole time. And for every teenage boy who was insecure about his calves
Mm-hmm.
and wanted them to look like Casey Crawford's calves,
Casey Crawford. Wow.
superhero calves,
Yes.
still has them to this day,
Yes.
right? I mean, like
That's
the
the
way
first
they're
thing I
drawn up in
noticed about
DC
Casey.
Comics,
Yep, that's Casey.
that's Casey.
Yep.
Casey broke his leg junior year,
Never
and
lost the calf.
it came out of the cast like pretty dwindled, and then 10 days later, superhero calf.
Yeah. Snap back.
So anyways, it was for all of us insecure teenage boys who were dying to have superhero calves, and it came with a prescribed workout, and said this is going to knock 0.2 of a second off of your 40, whatever their claim was. And My guess is it was less the product and more the fact that you were sprinting all summer
You were
and doing
sprinting.
plyometrics all summer.
Yep.
And, my strength coach in Atlanta, it was a great man. He said, guys, if you want to get faster, power clean, snatch, squat, and sprint a
Mm-hmm.
lot.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get faster.
Yep.
And, it put me in good structured workouts and it worked.
Oh, yeah, and that's the thing. So if anybody was fortunate to go in East Bay and purchase that or go to their website,
East Bay.
you know, and you put it in the mail and you really had to wait a month to get it because you really you really appreciated products back then. Like everybody want to be Michael Jordan or Bo. And when those strength shoes came out, boy, oh boy. But it goes back to what you said. Even in the product, if you really break down what really happened, it was just repetition. Like you worked, you use it, and you were on your toes, and you were just working and working and working. And I know when I first met you, not to fast forward too much, when I got here at UVA in the summer of '97, I just remember like seeing like Donnie Green was like the biggest defensive lineman I had seen in high school. He was at my high school. He was a year older than me. So I remember seeing like Mo, Dingo, athletic guys, but I just remember seeing like just this white guy just look like Arnold Schwarzenegger and never stopped. And I just remember I was like, yo, I remember I asked Jermaine Crowell, I was like, yo, who is that? He was like, oh, that's PK, that's Pat. I was just like, dude, do we ever get tired? Like he just running around. And you didn't talk as much as Wally and Dex and Burnham and all those guys. I don't think anybody ever did. Between yourself, like you and Travis Griffith, like you just looked the part, and Travis was like stone cold. He was just unassuming. And I just that jumped out to me the most. When you who was your defensive line coach before Coach Smith came in?
Bob Petchel.
Petchel. I remember I was watching the interview doing my research for our interview, and it seemed like you got this twice. In high school, I think a high school coach told you were a little scrawny and probably didn't believe in you. And even he kind of gave you an inkling like, hey, you're a little scrawny, but you could probably play on Sundays. When did the light bulb go off for you of, yeah, I could probably play on Sundays?
Yeah. It was junior year at Clemson, and I just come back. I missed one game. I sprained MCL. Happened at Carolina. I missed the next week home against Wake Forest, and then was back the following week at Clemson.
I remember that game at Clemson.
Nealon Green
Yep.
at quarterback, and I ended up with 2 sacks and 2 forced fumbles. And like after that game, like, all right, I'm in the ACC, and I just had a game of 2 sacks and 2 forced fumbles. And then I looked at the draft record of our conference. Obviously, Florida State was spitting out defensive ends right and left with Peter Buller, Renard Wilson, Andre Wadsworth, Greg Ellis was coming out of Carolina. Virginia, we had a good run of Slade and Frederick, and John Harris went in the first round. Dwayne Aspirin, those 2 guys were my mentors. He was a 5th round pick, I think. So like, it just dawned on me, it's like, oh my gosh, like if I'm an NFL scout, I want to see that guy who had 2 sacks and 2 caused fumbles at Clemson this weekend. And that's when it hit. Like this could be a real thing. So let's keep working our tail off to see if it can happen.
Yeah, and I remember that summer of '98, and I still tell people this story. I just remember walking. We doing our summer sessions. I think everybody went to summer school. I think did they force us, but didn't force us? Because I just remember everybody just went. But I always
highly recommended.
Yeah, highly recommended. Shout out to Miss Kathy Jarvis. She would say it in a nice way too. I just remember always seeing you with your jug of water. Just a jug of water, just pumping the water, pumping the water. Was it tough for you to maintain the weight?
Big time, yeah. The water was because I was on creatine, and everyone said like, this stuff is great, but be careful. If you're not hydrated, you'll yank a hamstring in a heartbeat. And so I wanted to make sure that wouldn't happen. But yeah, in retrospect, you see these modern Planet Fitness commercials with that meathead walking around saying, "I pick things up and put them down again with a big jug of water." It's like,
Yep,
oh my gosh, that was
that was
me,
you. That was you.
dude. Yeah, I was that guy. You know, I was driven at that point. I'd had I think 8 sacks as a junior, and I think going into that year was told I was a fifth to seventh round prospect, which was fine by me. The fact
Yeah.
that I was on an NFL radar was still kind of absurd to me. So it's like, great, let's ride this train as far as it'll take you.
Yeah, I mean, did you lift with Swella too when we was in school? So you were a part of the Swella lifting crew as well. For folks that don't know, Swella was one of our strength coaches. Barry was the strength coach then. I think Decker came after you left. So yeah, it was bigger, faster, stronger. Barry, get your lift. Everybody, get your lift. And then you had Swella, just this little jack dude that just knew how to size anybody to like lift their heaviest. So strength was never an issue for our team. I tell you
No,
that much.
no, we were a strong team. And I'm sure you remember, it was only once a summer, Bear would wait for like that 98-degree day with 90% humidity and say, "All right, boys, mental toughness day.
Man, I'm
Let's
telling you.
roll." And we would just keep running that hill
Oh,
until he probably waited until like five guys tried to fight him. And then
yeah.
it's like, and then he knew, all right, I've broken enough dudes. Take it in.
Yeah, it was definitely who gonna fight Barry today. Somebody like fight Barry. Christ, you guys, just get the workout done. You're being soft. It's not at
Oh
all.
man. Yeah, but those were real.
So that 98 year, so I'm still a young buck. So I wasn't like, like when you become upper class, that's when you start to look at the moving parts. As you stated, you do your research, you look at guys who get drafted, you start looking at your career as far as the NFL. From your recollection, that summer of '99, how good did you think that team would be?
Uh, you know, at the point where we had climbed up to number 6 in the country, I
Georgia
wasn't
Tech.
su- I wasn't surprised. You know, we all knew how good Aaron was. We knew we had the top running back recruit in the country now starting for us, and we all watched Thomas. And you talk like on those mental toughness days. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously he was a spectacular looking athlete and fast and strong. But on those mental toughness days, you watch him, you're like, oh,
It was different.
we got one there.
Yeah.
We got a dog, a tailback. There just wasn't really a hole. Um, and obviously every year at that time, Florida State was going to be number 1 or 2 in the country. So that was always going to be a challenge. And it proved a challenge for us that year. But in the first half of that game, we were toe to toe with them. And I'll just say I wasn't surprised when we were 6th in the country, and I was sincere in my belief that a national championship was a realistic goal.
Do you still think about that Georgia Tech game that year?
I do. Yeah.
I just can't figure out what really happened that second half.
There was somebody on our team who was trying his heart out to play injured.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's true.
And I love that guy, so I'd never say his name, but he was giving everything he could to play injured. And so I don't fault him for
And
that.
then he ended up sustaining a serious injury.
Yeah, yeah.
After he really got checked out, like that injury he had ended up being bad.
Yeah.
And the fact he bounced back and still was successful after that. But yeah, that was one of the things that now that you brought it to light, as always, it's that saying like sometimes you got to save the player from themselves because he loved his brother so much that he wanted to just keep pushing through.
Yeah. He was a blue collar grinder, would never take himself out of a game. And so, I love him for that. Just, even if it was to the detriment of, his reputation.
Yeah, he did. I mean, he did take a hit, and it's ironically he's never alluded to that situation. because he's not going to make an excuse for himself. And I remember in the past, never on camera, but talking to somebody who asked me about the game, and I alluded to, that situation. But it's amazing that you even brought it up. So yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you ended up that season second in the ACC and 10th nationally with 21 tackles for a loss. I do remember a move you used to do. I don't know if you remembered. You probably couldn't do it anymore because linemen are moved now, and you would be penalized. Do you? When we was playing Clemson here in '98, and you used to do this like belly flop move. You remember that?
This was when, before I could flinch.
Yeah, yeah.
And it would be, if they moved, it was on them, not on me.
Yep. And you will always get away with it. And you would come across the line, you'd be pointing, be like, I would tell people between PK and Casey, you guys will always say sir to the refs, and you would get them every time. Because I tell people at Virginia Tech, year 98, Casey didn't catch that ball, but he was like, sir, I caught the ball, sir. And that sold it. To this day, he just trapped it on the ground. But that replay, wasn't really a challenge back then, but he was so sincere. But even I remember going back and watching those old tapes, and I just remember like, wait a minute, is PK belly flopping? Is he flinching? Like, he couldn't do that today.
Can't do it today. But, Ty said, hey, that is in a potential advantage we have. They know the snap count, but we can do this. Let's see just how well they know that snap count. And, Clemson that year, they had a tough situation at left tackle. And the week before we played them, unfortunately, they played Virginia Tech like the week before we played them. And Engelberger and Corey Moore got off. I think they each had 3 sacks and just, destroyed who was that court? Is that Brandon Streeter maybe?
Yeah, it was Streeter. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, clearly that week in practice, they said, Brandon, when you catch that ball, count to 1.5 and get rid of it. And so sure enough, that same tackle was there and running circles around him early in the game. And so they bring in this true freshman who looked the part, but he was a true freshman. Was like, no, I'm gonna have a little fun now.
Yeah.
I think I literally went 3 plays in a row where I did that flinch.
Yes.
And he jumped, and they're sitting there looking at 3rd and 25, like, oh my gosh. So
that's why that game jumps out to me, because when I went back, I have telling my age now, on DVD, but it was on cassette. And I was just I was just watching it this summer, and I was just like, wait a minute, is PK really jumping off sides and pointing at the tackle, and we getting the call, and would he just keep doing it? I was like, all right, when he comes on, I got to ask him about that. And out of all people, so if people don't know, Coach Ty Smith, is a guy that outside looking in, he's probably the most unapproachable person. But once you know him, he was like, him and Coach Wells were similar to me. And if you don't know them, you're not going to go talk to them. You're going to be kind of intimidated. I just remember Coach Smith as a special teams coach. How was he as your position coach?
I loved Coach Smith. Now, when he first showed up, I didn't.
Yeah.
He broke us all down to 0. He started with, this is a football, and broke us down to 0, and was candid as all get out with what he thought of each of our games.
Great posture too.
Great posture. He was a weight room guy, still is. And about a week into that training camp with him, I'm sitting there thinking, well, there goes any shot at the NFL. As a 5th to 7th round pick, this guy's going to destroy what any game I had. I'm done. Well, he is, as much to credit. No, he is to credit for the immense vault my game took that year. And I'll never forget. I strained a hamstring that training camp, and had to miss like 5 days, 6 days of practice. And
that's a lot. That's a lot too with who our coaches are.
Yeah, exactly. And so he's like, all right, well, we're going to see if you're ready to go. Let's go out there at noon, it was a 2-a-day, And so between practices, he's like, let's go out there at noon. And so I'm coming out, and there's 4 young offensive linemen coming out. And I'm like, huh, okay. And so he's just again, again, cycle out, get a fresh lineman, again, just
Oh,
wore
wow.
me out, and just got the clear message like, sorry, I pulled a hamstring, I won't do it again.
Absolutely.
But I reached out to him. I was so disappointed in myself. I don't know why I didn't. But when they did my jersey retirement, I guess I just figured the program would have alerted him to
Hmm.
be there, and he wasn't. I didn't see him that weekend, and it's one of those things that it kind of breaks my heart. But nonetheless, last August, I finally caught up with him when I was in town visiting the team. Leading up to that, there was a great, I think it was, is Kara Lawson? Is she the Duke women's basketball coach?
Yeah, Carolina. Yep.
Yeah, I think it went pretty viral. Her speech talking about like, you know, get making young people used to hard. And when they get used to hard, her job was to make it harder
Hmm.
because life's not easy, and you got to get ready. You got to get used to hard, and really adopt hard. And I sent that clip to him. I was like, thank you for being the person that kept making it harder for me and getting me used to hard. Because as I say, oftentimes reflecting on coaches of my career, sort of, Monday through Friday, he wore me out and beat me down and picked apart my game. But on Saturday, he had me convinced I was Superman.
Mm.
Even if I had a crappy play, he did take care of that on film on Sunday. But he had me convinced. He'd literally just sit there. We're playing San Jose State, and it's end of the game, and he'd literally just sit there. And you got a sack yet? Not yet. He goes, go in there and get a sack, as if it was like totally up to me. I could do it at will. And
Yeah.
sure enough, I went in there, got a sack, and then he pulled me. He's like, you got your sack. Come on and watch the rest of the game. He just had instilled this confidence in me on game day that just a crucial man in my journey.
You had 8 sacks your junior year. You basically doubled it. You had 15 that senior year. All American for the first, second team. That 15 sacks, that tied you with Slade, right? With the school record.
Yeah, the
So
legend.
you're forever link. When somebody say Chris Slade and sacks, Patrick, like we think about it, we had like since you left, had like the Daryl Blackstocks, the Eli Harrells, Charles Snowdens, the list goes on like pass rushers that we had. But you're the upper echelon of pass rushers, not only at UVA, but even in the ACC. When you think about a guy that, it seems like no matter what you do, you take the hard route. Like, I'm going to go play hockey. Or I'm going to go wrestle as a cross train. Wrestle as a cross train? Yeah, I'm going to do that. Now I'm going to go to UVA at basically like 215, 220 and play defensive end. Now, all right, now I'm going to just gain weight. And while I'm gaining weight and getting better, we're going to bring in a coach that is really going to strip you down mentally. Let's see if you tough enough. Oh, yeah, you went to boarding school too. So if you like really look at just your journey through UVA, it's like, it goes back to like the Bronco Mendenhall or not given. Like you earned it. You really earned it. Because if we look at our defensive team in 98, everybody will probably point at the athletes, like the Mo Anderson, the Antonio Dingles. You had the athletes, but when you got to 58, it was like, he ain't gonna try to out-athlete you. He's just gonna try to bust your ass all game because you stated it ain't about that first 40. How your 40 looking in the fourth quarter? Think about that. That's tough. It's like that grinder in boxing. You got the flashy guy, got the jab and the dancer, but what's that guy that's like Rocky who's just gonna keep coming forward? And you were that keep coming forward, go back type of defensive player that is like a joy because you was just as strong in the run game as the pass. I don't think a lot of people realize how stout you was defending the run as well, setting the edge.
Well, thank you. Yeah, as we know now, luckily with wisdom, but often you don't know when you're young,
Hmm.
right? Like the hard way is the fun way.
Yeah.
Like it is. Like if I fell into 15 sacks, I wouldn't. I mean, I just wouldn't value it that much. And I say to my kids now all the time. I tell them like, look, being a parent is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And I tell them, mind you, it is the most valuable and most amazing blessing in my life, but it's the hardest thing I've ever done. Understand that. And you know, getting used to hard, like there's a great saying on parenting. It's like don't what is it? Don't prepare the road for the child, prepare the child for the road.
Yeah.
And we're blessed as athletes, and to come from the era we did where we had demanding coaches, and they put obviously they wanted guys who were great natural athletes, but they also wanted guys who were hard, and they knew the value of that. And so um, you know candidly, I was probably just always trying to prove that I wasn't some soft New England boarding school kid.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think I told the Virginia team this once, maybe my high school team once. I'll never forget the last practice I had in Seattle. And I was pretty certain this was going to be my last practice in the NFL, last Thursday practice. And I just remember sprinting my tail to the ball during team. I had a couple Pro Bowls, a couple All Pros, some great accolades in my rearview mirror. And still in that last practice, I was like, keep sprinting to the ball. Don't let them find out you're just some soft New England prep school kid. I was like, wait a minute, you got a resume now. They're not thinking
Definitely
that
did have a
anymore.
resume by then. Yes. Yeah.
But there was, just always this chip on my shoulder that said, don't let them know that you're soft. Funny what that leads to.
Yeah. I mean, you were already a two-time All Pro. You were NFC Defensive Player of the Year. You had 4 seasons with double-digit sacks. But the fact you still had that mindset, it takes me back to after I got released from the Falcons, that camp with you. I, I'm on the practice squad with the Chiefs, and Priest Holmes just used to jump out to me because he would finish every run, no matter where it was at. His mindset was he understood he was an undrafted free agent, and his mindset was there isn't a tomorrow. Basically, he had to continue to prove himself. And here you are, your 11th season in the NFL with the Seahawks, and your last practice, you're still trying to prove that you're not what they are, what you feel like they may be perceiving you as, because your humility won't allow that. And I think that takes us back to our decision to go to UVA. And as much as we have funny stories about Welsh, and I do want to ask you like your most candid memory of Coach. I think that's something that he really instilled in us, because that year when we got to number 6, do you remember before we played Georgia Tech, when he got to the podium, what he told us? You're not that good.
What? I say, which line?
You took his glasses off. You're not that good. I mean, number 6. It's not. You're not that good. And he put his glasses back on and go through the agenda.
I mean, we're all like, he's the best back in the country. But
Yeah.
okay, whatever you say, coach. Yeah. He kept us humble. That is important. And you talk about Priest Holmes and what you saw there, and we talked about Thomas. I, I just college, uh, even into the pros, right? There weren't many guys who were right in the NFL. You probably got 8 to 10 guys that are your big money earners. I don't know how many of those guys in my NFL career weren't dogs,
Mm.
like that loved the grind and wanted to work. And you're like, oh, it's not a surprise that you're where you are. Um, it's just right. The best athlete in the NFL and the worst athlete in the NFL aren't that far apart.
Mm-mm.
Uh, and so uh, at a position, so take it as wide receiver, as a cornerback, whatever it is. And so, like, if you're not willing to do things that other people aren't willing to do, like, then you're replaceable, unless you're a generational athlete.
That's your generational that is the truest statement ever. When when your talent, as long as your talent outweighs your issues, you can get away with things. I tell younger people this, like, your talent can dictate how you are treated or how many times people look away. But you got to understand, like, who you are and what you really want. And this is going to lead me to my next question, because I feel like you're the perfect person to ask this because of what you're doing currently and what you've done once you stepped away from the NFL and was on the administrative side as far as financial literacy and having your MBA. The NIL in college sports, what's the best way for these young student athletes to navigate this financial blessings that they're receiving at this age? Because, when we were coming out, you had to truly wait until you got out of college and got to the NFL. But now it could start as early as high school. What's the best way, in your opinion, because you have an MBA, of navigating this NIL landscape?
Yeah, the best thing I could tell these college guys who are getting real money now, like NFL level money, it's crazy. It's the same thing I used to tell rookies late in my career, and certainly when I was working for the NFL and going back and doing financial literacy, that I'd say, find a friend who's not on the football team. Look at how they live. When you leave college, look at how they live. Understand that, right? I mean, a comm school grad from UVA, which is the one or two undergrad business school in the world, heads off to New York to be an investment banker. They're kind of living on the edge of poverty, and they're working, 80-hour weeks. They're miserable, but they're stocking human capital. Like, we have a chance to stock financial capital day one, and the more we tether ourselves to the lifestyle of even a successful graduate or a successful classmate, the more we tether our lifestyle to that, the more financial capital we'll be able to stack and put away, and let the magic of the stock market over decades do its thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the problem is, it's so much can just be tracked back to the spending, and you have a choice to say, all right, let me find a hardworking, successful classmate and see how they live at age 22, or let me look at the fraud the media puts on, that once you're a professional athlete, you better have 20 custom suits and 50,000 gold watches and all this ridiculousness that is meaningless and is just, I get it. We're young, like, we're young, and like, we all got eventually one thing on our mind, and
Yes.
we think if we flaunt the dough, that'll be easier for us, and it gets us all in trouble. Um, you know, right away, in real time, and then in the long term, to sit there and say, I'm almost 50 now. It's like, if I was sitting here at age 50, and I was like, I'm sitting here with, countless surgical scars and, all these earnings in the rearview mirror. And I got to look at my children and say, yeah, sorry, no, like, it's all gone. Like, what an awful feeling. But, these young men have the opportunity to say, to someday in their future, look at their family and say, no, we are financially secure because I lived like a non-professional athlete in my 20s and part of my 30s. And now it's, kind of easy street because I took the hard road back when it mattered.
Man, I think those great words is just having that solid it's the solid foundation is no different than when we prepare for our sport, prepare for academics, doing it the right way. Because I always feel like if you create that solid foundation, a true solid foundation, the success will follow because it goes back to like embracing the heart. I always tell young people, embrace the journey. Don't focus on the result. Like just embrace the journey. Like, cause that's your day-to-day work, right? Your day-to-day work, that day-to-day contract with yourself, that day-to-day challenge of winning that day. That as you talked about with Coach Smith, Monday through Friday, he broke you down, but Saturday, he had you feeling like you had superpowers. Cause it's like, if you could get him to, if he cheers for you, it's like, that's the greatest thing ever because he's really stripped you down. That humility is there. And that was Coach Welsh, like that humanity. Like, don't get, like, I don't want folks to think like guys went in the locker room still thinking they had the cocky swagger in a sense. But in the midst of that cocky swagger, that humility was there. Because you were reminded you're really not that good. We can be up or we could be down. But that belief was still there. Like Coach Wells always, like you talked about, like we may not have a lot of top athletes across the board like a Florida State. But when you build that true solid foundation and that lunch pail, not I can't say lunch pail, that's Virginia Tech. Good, they're gonna that blue collar, that always gave us a chance. Like that was just the culture. You always got a chance because you worked. And you were honest with we were honest with each other. I look at all our assistant coaches back then. If you looked at like whether it was Coach Lance, Coach Powell, it didn't matter. Like they were brutally honest with us.
There's a great quote. I don't know if you know the guy Thomas Sowell. He's
Yeah.
economics professor, 94 years old, brilliant guy. And he says, if you want to help yourself, you're going to tell people what they want to hear. If you want to help others, you're going to tell them the truth. That's young players, and y'all listen to this podcast. Take that. That's a multi-million-dollar piece of advice there. If someone's only telling you what you want to hear, they're taking care of themselves.
I mean, that speaks to just your journey in itself. I can only imagine being in high school and your football coach is like, you little scrawny, I don't know. And then it works out for you. And then you take the chance to go talk to a top Division I coach at UVA who's on the cross team and you're talking about football. But you already put that groundwork in with the strength shoes. So you look the part, but that humility in you is like, hey, I want to get to the football team. And you're not even a football coach, but you here, you at UVA, I'm going to jump out there. Oh, yeah, by the way, I'm one of the better guys in this sport too, but I'm still talking about that sport. And when you get to the sport, it's just like, you might have a chance, but you're scrawny. And then you finally get the weight. You have a good season. You get a new D-line coach, and he's like, I don't know. We're going to see, And then that still works out. And then you get to the Falcons, and it's 2.5 sacks, 2.5 sacks. And then boom. Like you get this electric guy that could play quarterback, but it's like, I got double-digit sacks now. And then, we ain't even, like, I don't like to talk about people money, but when you left Atlanta, you opted out. You took a risk on you bet on yourself. And when you get to Seattle, man, you go up even more. Like you bet on when we look at your journey, PK, you bet on yourself. I want to play hockey. I'm gonna go to boarding school. I'm gonna go over there to New England. I'm in Pennsylvania. I'm gonna go over there. Like, who does that? You do. For cross training for football, I'm gonna go wrestle. And can't be that bad. Who does that? You do. Look at the results.
The hard way is rewarding. And I'm blessed. I had people continually nudge me back towards taking the hard way, and it's how we as young men grow to learn that we'll be okay in this world, right? I often say we're all blessed to live in the wealthiest nation in the world. We have it so good that sports are the best way to manufacture adversity. because we have never lived with the threat of enemy troops marching in our neighborhood. We've never left or never lived with the idea of having to pick up our family and carry them through the night to, I mean, like, things our species has been through, that they've survived and managed through. And we have it so good that, sports, it's the best way to manufacture adversity to give young people the confidence that they can do hard things.
I think that's a great message right there. I'm gonna ask you a couple more questions because I don't want to take up more of your time. You went to Columbia, got your MBA. Now you have your own insurance company, correct?
Hmm.
How has that transition been for you? Just ownership of your own now.
Yeah, it's great. Yes, with four kids, and my wife, she's a broadcaster, and so that's it's a tricky, odd hour industry.
Yeah.
So, being my own boss is great because of the flexibility, but with that comes the idea that, hey, like, maybe you're not working 9 to 5, but if you got to get back in the office at 10 at night, you got to get back in the office. There's a job to do, you got to do it. And it might not be when everyone else is doing it, but you got to get it done. So I've enjoyed that. It's an eat what you kill thing. The funny part is, I think a tough transition for every football player is we are so used to constant feedback. We know where we stand. Hey, how did one-on-one pass rush go today? Right? How did pass skelly go today, Mod?
Yep.
Right? And like, you have an opinion of yourself because of that.
Yep.
You got, in the NFL, 16 or now 17 evaluation periods. You know where you stand. And you get out in the business world, and really it's like, all right, I got like 2 or 3 games a year.
Mm,
And,
that's a big change.
it's a big change. So much is preparation. And, if you don't do it, you'll lose the games and feel terrible. But, your feedback is much less frequent. And so, you draw upon the discipline you had in your preparation, but just have, you got to get comfortable with the idea that, like, you're not going to know what comes of all that preparation for much longer than what you've been used to when playing sports.
Yeah, and once you retired, um, with your wife, because I know I had this conversation personally with my wife. Once you retired, we don't realize it until we retire and stop playing. How we always everything really revolved around us. We're pretty much spoiled in a sense of it was what we had to do first. How was that transition for you as a husband and a father, being entrenched in the everyday, day to day parenting, and now we take a step back and the wife takes the lead as far as her job is the priority, as far as if she has to have a meeting, the kids are on us, on you. Like how was that for you?
Yeah, I consider it a blessing, right?
Yeah.
Because of my NFL career, has afforded me the flexibility to be very involved with my kids. You know, I often tell them I was, look, totally out of my control. I was blessed with the fact I didn't meet my wife until I was 30, and we didn't start dating until I was just about 31. And I retired in April of 2010. We got married in June, and started business school that August. But nonetheless, I tell my kids, right, we raise our kids, obviously, say, hey, don't be selfish. But then I explained to them, my NFL career. I was like, well, kids, I was very selfish in my 20s, and they're like, that's terrible. I was like, yeah, let me try to explain. I was like, and to get a little deep, I was like, I mean, I was actually being selfless because I was thinking about you,
Hmm.
right? And I said to my children, like, I was doing this. I was selfish to be selfless for you.
Mm.
Um, I said I would have been either a terrible husband and father, or not nearly the football player I was if I had met mom when I was 23. And we got married when I was 26, and I raising kids. I'd have been one or the other because when we're playing, it's, hey, this is when I sleep. this is what I eat. This is how much I eat. This is what I'm going to eat. Like, and do not mess with the program. It's such a short window to capitalize on such an opportunity. Like, you better make the most of it, because once it's gone, it's gone. And then there's an opportunity cost there in terms of other careers. So there's going to be a steep cliff. Earnings fall off, and so I'm just blessed that I met Lisa when I did, so that I could be extremely selfish for my NFL career to get the most out of it.
That's awesome. That's awesome, PK. And I know your wife is a former sportscaster. Is she still in the field as well?
She actually just left FanDuel.
Okay.
So yeah, she did 7 years at FanDuel after ESPN, which was after CBS New York, which was after MLB Network, which was after where we met, which was NBC in Seattle. But she's a grinder. She's tough. I mean, like, she was pregnant with our second, working for CBS New York, waking up at 1:30 in the morning.
Wow.
And I probably told her to quit every other day. and, and she just went. She was a college hoops player, so like she's blue collar, and just loves being told she can't do something. Understood from day one. She's like, I understand how I'm probably perceived in my profession for my appearance, so I'm going to work that much harder to overcompensate for that. And she's an awesome woman. She's the most important person in the world to me, and I'm blessed that I found her.
That's awesome, because your pursuit for greatness all these years allows you to be understanding, compassionate, and supporting for her pursuit to prove doubters wrong and be great in her own field. And I think that's the greatest thing. Once we empathize and really, when you do it the right way, and when you strive to do it the right way, you understand why somebody's not listening to you when you say, hey, you don't need to do that. Hey, come do this. Because we don't want to see them go through the stressors, but they were just, she was just like you that last practice of Seattle. Because I'm looking at you probably like, what? Hey, if you don't chill out, we don't look at you like that. But that mindset that you shared, and I think that's like the greatest thing ever. Like, that blew my mind that your very last practice, you still had that mindset, because you were established. You were great in your own right. But the fact that you still had that mindset, your 11th year, your last practice, really speaks volume to why, when you left, you got your MBA, why you were able to do what you did for the NFL and the financial literacy side, why you were able to do what you're doing as far as your insurance company, why you are able to be the father you are, the husband you are. That action, that story in itself is just a culmination of just your thing, man. I'd rather do it the hard way.
Thank you, man. That means a lot coming from you, man. Like, you know, I I know you're a guy who left it all on the table when you're
Mhm.
on the field, and it kind of like I said when I'm going to try to walk on at Virginia, like, as long as you give it your best and you take it as far as you can hold your head up the rest of your life. And you're someone I know you still have that dog in you with your 5 a.m. runs. I've seen the Bleav running group
Yeah.
and the primal screams, which are like, I get it. I'll finish a 10,000-meter row and wake up the whole house with like a bellow.
Yeah.
And it's a blessing to want to find the hard way. It seems strange to a lot of people, and I understand why it does, but it's a great blessing that I know you're.
Well, I appreciate you for joining the show. I just always want you to know that I think I tell the story probably anytime one of my track athletes may be going through something, or I feel like they're not working their butts off, or even my son, I work with my son. And I'm not just saying this because you're here, but my wife even tell you that I always tell the story of you. Like, I remember I was just, 98 that summer, he had his jug of water and the work he put in. Cause I was just like, he was the most unassuming guy on our defense, but he was the most dangerous. I know you had the Anthony Poindexter, Wally Rainers, but that dude was he was that dangerous guy. Like, if I had to bet on somebody, 58 gonna give me everything he got for 4 quarters. And the fact that I even had to say that first, and you talked about running the first 40 and the coach talking, evaluating the player in the fourth quarter. I just want to thank you for just being that example for me, because that summer was tough for me because I came off those 2 torn ligaments in my ankle versus Maryland down there in 97. But seeing the work that you put in allowed me to continue to work in myself, because I had never went through anything, but just learning about you from afar and asking around, you never knew this. Just asking about your story from other people, and then seeing you, the joy you had in working hard made me enjoy working hard. So I want to thank you for just being an example for me as a young guy.
I'm getting chills as you say that, man. That means the world to me. Thank you.
No problem, man. So Bleav Network, Bleav in Virginia, Virginia fan base, the great Patrick Kerney, a guy that did it the hard way, embraced doing it the hard way. And I don't think I ever meet somebody who wrestled, played hockey, went to boarding school. Like, man, you you blew my mind with some of these stories, man.
Yeah, there's I don't know, I guess I'm a unique cat.
You definitely are unique, but you are forever legendary. I thank you for blessing our platform with just your inspiration, your story. Anything you want to tell the Wahoo fans before I let you get back to your lovely family and your wife?
Yeah, I mean, just I know particularly with our Commonwealth Cup matchup, like the fan base is going to dictate where this program goes. The fan culture, the love you show for the team, your passion, uh, in the model that is out there now for college football, you, the fan base, you're gonna, as strange as it sounds, you're gonna dictate where this program goes as much as those guys in the field. So, you know, I certainly loved your support when I was there, and you know, I think these guys that are on the roster now will come to recognize just how passionate you are, and they want to get that flywheel spinning, get you some wins. But when they do, man, give them that energy, and watch this program return to greatness.
There you have it, man. The great Patrick Kerney, who, when he stepped on campus, we just won the ACC. In football, went to the national championship in lacrosse, and the rest is history. So until next time, Bleav in Virginia. We out of here.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.